You think beachfront living costs millions? Think again. These 12 American beach towns are shockingly affordable, so cheap you'll assume something's wrong. Stay with me, because there is a catch. 11. Westport, Washington. Westport is the opposite of a tropical beach fantasy. The sand is dark, the water is cold, and fog rolls in without warning. The Pacific Ocean does not invite casual swimming here. It demands respect. The median home price is around $285,000, which is remarkably reasonable for ocean access in Washington state. Add in the fact that Washington does not collect state income tax, and the financial side starts looking interesting for remote workers earning strong salaries. The atmosphere in Westport leans artistic and independent. Commercial fishing boats line the harbor. Surfers in thick wetsuits paddle out into powerful waves. Driftwood logs scatter across wide beaches that often feel empty. The beauty is dramatic rather than postcard perfect. This is beach living for someone who finds peace in gray skies and powerful tides. The catch is sunlight. Westport averages more rainy days than sunny ones. For people who rely on bright weather to stay energized, that can feel heavy. Seasonal gloom is real here. Still, for someone who values privacy, natural drama, and lower competition in the housing market, Westport offers Pacific Ocean access without California-level pricing. It forces a simple decision: warmth and crowds elsewhere, or quiet and stormy beauty here. 10. Crescent City, California. Crescent City challenges everything people assume about California real estate. The median home price sits near $295,000, which barely sounds believable for coastal California. This town is located at the northernmost edge of the state, closer to Oregon than Los Angeles. Massive redwoods surround the area, and the coastline curves into a natural crescent that gives the town its name. Battery Point Lighthouse stands offshore, reachable on foot during low tide. Tide pools fill with marine life. The setting feels untouched compared to Southern California's polished beach cities. Yet this is still California, which means state income tax applies. High earners will feel that difference compared to neighboring Oregon or Washington. Isolation plays a major role in pricing. Major airports are hours away. Job opportunities are limited compared to San Francisco or Los Angeles. The town's economy leans heavily on tourism and local institutions. There is also history with seismic activity and past tsunami damage, and evacuation routes are clearly marked throughout town. Crescent City offers stunning scenery at a fraction of California's typical coastal cost, but buyers must decide if distance and taxes offset the savings on the purchase price. Port Aransas, Texas. Port Aransas sits on Mustang Island along the Texas coast and carries a median home price around $375,000. The beaches are wide and welcoming, with warm Gulf water and enough space for vehicles in designated areas. That alone feels uniquely Texan. The culture blends fishing traditions with vacation energy, especially during summer weekends when visitors pour in from Houston and Austin. Texas does not charge state income tax, which attracts entrepreneurs and remote professionals. That benefit can translate into thousands of dollars saved each year depending on income level. However, property taxes in Texas are among the highest in the country. On a home priced around $375,000, annual property taxes can climb quickly. Insurance costs are another factor, especially after past storms reshaped parts of the coast. Long-term rental inventory is limited because vacation properties dominate the market. Anyone planning to test the town before buying might struggle to find a standard lease. Port Aransas feels vibrant and full of personality, but the financial equation requires careful calculation. No income tax sounds simple, but total cost of ownership tells a more complex story. If this kind of honest breakdown is helping you rethink beach living, take a moment to subscribe so you do not miss the next analysis. 8. Gulfport, Mississippi. Gulfport's median home price sits near $195,000. That figure alone makes it one of the most affordable true beach cities in America. Gulfport is not just a small tourist stop. It is a functioning city with a working port, casinos, restaurants, and nearby military installations that provide steady employment. The Gulf Coast here was rebuilt after past hurricanes, with long stretches of public beach restored along Highway 90. The sand may be engineered, but the shoreline feels expansive and accessible. Cost of living remains below the national average, which allows residents to stretch their income further than in many coastal states. Mississippi's statewide economic challenges affect perception. Rankings in education and healthcare often land near the bottom nationally. That reality keeps some buyers away and helps maintain lower housing prices. At the same time, Gulfport has a diverse community and a surprisingly strong food culture shaped by Gulf fishing traditions and Vietnamese influence. The question becomes whether someone prioritizes reputation or monthly affordability. Gulfport quietly offers one of the most accessible paths to coastal ownership in the country. 7. Carolina Beach, North Carolina. Carolina Beach represents classic Atlantic nostalgia. The boardwalk features arcades, rides, and local shops that give the town an old-school energy. The median home price sits around $425,000, which sounds high compared to Gulf Coast numbers, but relatively modest for the Atlantic coastline. Many East Coast beach towns push well beyond $500,000. The town sits about 15 miles from Wilmington, providing access to jobs, hospitals, and an airport without living in a large city. The beach itself is wide and swimmable for much of the year. Waves draw surfers, and summer tourism keeps the local economy active. Prices have been climbing as remote workers discover coastal North Carolina. While hurricane risk exists along the Atlantic, it tends to be less intense here than in some Gulf hotspots. Carolina Beach feels like a town balancing tradition and growth. Buyers who act early may benefit from appreciation, but waiting could mean watching affordability slowly slip away. 6. Manistee, Michigan. Manistee sits along Lake Michigan with a median home price around $195,000, placing it in the same range as Gulfport, but with a completely different environment. The beaches are wide and sandy, and the water is fresh and remarkably clear. Summer evenings bring golden sunsets that rival any ocean view. Victorian architecture lines parts of downtown, a reminder of the lumber era that once fueled the region's economy. Insurance costs are generally more reasonable here compared to hurricane-prone areas. There is no salt air corroding vehicles or exterior paint. There are no tropical storm watches dominating late summer forecasts. The trade-off is winter. Snowfall can exceed 80 inches in a year. The same shoreline that draws swimmers in July can freeze over in February. Manistee works for buyers who embrace seasonal living. Summer feels almost perfect. Winter requires resilience. For some, that is a fair exchange for long-term stability and lower overall housing costs. 5. Gulf Shores, Alabama. Gulf Shores offers sugar white sand and emerald water nearly identical to Florida's famous Panhandle beaches. The median home price sits around $350,000. Alabama's property tax rate is among the lowest in the nation, often around 0.4%. That difference can save homeowners thousands annually compared to neighboring states. Tourism drives much of the local economy. Vacation rentals dominate parts of the market, which can make long-term leasing competitive. Insurance remains part of the financial equation, especially in a region that has experienced strong storms. Summers are hot and humid, with temperatures that test patience in July and August. Still, Gulf Shores presents a compelling financial case. Lower property taxes shift the math in a way many buyers overlook. Over decades of ownership, those annual savings can accumulate significantly. For someone comparing Florida prices to Alabama costs, the contrast can feel dramatic. 4. Port St. Joe, Florida. Port St. Joe sits along Florida's so-called Forgotten Coast, where development remains limited compared to larger resort towns. The median home price is around $365,000. Beaches here frequently rank among the best in the nation for their clarity and natural beauty. Large stretches remain protected, offering miles of shoreline without towering condominiums. The area has faced powerful storms in the past, and insurance costs reflect that reality. Amenities are fewer than in larger cities, which some residents consider a benefit and others view as a limitation. There are fewer chain stores and fewer crowds. That simplicity defines the appeal. Port St. Joe offers Florida beachfront at a lower entry point than more famous destinations like Destin or Sarasota. The price gap exists because risk perception is higher. Buyers who are comfortable with that reality gain access to pristine beaches that feel almost untouched compared to heavily developed coasts. 3. Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Ocean Springs carries a median home price near $265,000 and surprises many visitors with its cultural depth. The downtown area is walkable, filled with galleries, restaurants, and live oaks draped in Spanish moss. Community festivals draw significant crowds each year, reinforcing a strong local identity. The town sits along the Mississippi Sound, offering calmer water and access to barrier islands offshore. While Mississippi's broader economic issues still apply, Ocean Springs demonstrates how a focused community can cultivate character and charm at a lower price point than comparable arts-driven beach towns elsewhere. Housing remains within reach for middle-class buyers, which allows artists and entrepreneurs to stay rather than relocate to cheaper inland cities. That affordability sustains the culture itself. Ocean Springs proves that coastal living does not always require sacrificing creativity or community. 2. Rockport, Texas. Rockport's median home price sits around $310,000. The town blends fishing heritage with an established art scene and strong birdwatching tourism. Located along a bay rather than the open Gulf, Rockport offers calmer water suited for kayaking and family recreation. Texas's lack of state income tax once again influences the financial equation. However, property taxes and insurance remain significant considerations. Rockport rebuilt after severe storm damage in recent years, and redevelopment brought updated construction standards. The town feels quieter than Port Aransas, but equally authentic. Galleries and coastal cottages coexist with marinas and seafood restaurants. Rockport appeals to buyers who want culture and coastal access without the highest Gulf Coast price tags. 1. Mexico Beach, Florida. Mexico Beach stands at the top of the list with a median home price around $340,000. The beaches are wide, bright, and strikingly beautiful. New construction has replaced older homes, built to stronger standards and modern codes. The area's history with powerful storms shapes its affordability. Some buyers hesitate, which keeps pricing lower than in other Florida beachfront communities. For those willing to accept calculated risk, Mexico Beach offers Florida coastal ownership at numbers closer to Mississippi levels than Miami levels. So now the question turns to you. Would you choose winter stability over tropical uncertainty? Would you accept higher taxes for lower purchase prices? Would you trade crowds for quiet or convenience for savings?